And we're live, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. Welcome to Benchley night. What a joy to be here. What a joy to be here, ladies and gentlemen. With everything that's wrong with this world, at least we have Benchley. Oh, I love doing these. And as the holidays approach, Robert Benchley had a lot to say about Christmas. He was rather jaundiced about it, I must say. But there are things about Christmas that I truly love. One is the scarlottles, which my brother William and I both are deeply fond of. The scarlottles only made an appearance in the Great Golden Christmas Book, or the Great Golden Book of Christmas, or whatever. And there are only 2 pages devoted to them. But the scarlottles were a family that did everything backwards. And so the 2 pages are pictures of the scarlottles' Christmas. And you're supposed to pick out all the things that they're doing wrong. I aspire to be a scarlottle. I aspire to the scarlottles. And I will be posting the scarlottles on Faceplant or on Instapuppy or some one of those things. But anyway, the other thing about the holidays that I love is it's a long-standing tradition on one side of our family, on the ministerial side of the family, the Royal Riviera pears. Now, Royal Riviera pears are sold by Harry and David, who must be awfully long in the tooth at this point. But Harry and David have this kind of pear, Royal Rivieras, that my Uncle Graham, my great uncle on my father's side, used to send. I believe it was Uncle Graham sent boxes of Royal Rivieras every Christmas. That tradition is still alive, and today I received from Aunt Dee out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the mother of my very, very tall cousin. Aunt Dee sends Royal Riviera pears every year. And if you're watching, very, very tall cousin, let Aunt Dee know that the pears arrived and I am filled with joy. Anyway, we now read all the liberal snowplowing do-gooders at the end. So we're going to get right into tonight's reading, which is Robert Benchley's A Good Old-Fashioned Christmas. Sooner or later, at every Christmas party, just as things are beginning to get good, someone shuts his eyes, puts his head back, and moans softly. Oh, well, this isn't like the old days. We don't seem to have any good old-fashioned Christmases anymore. To which the answer from my corner of the room is, that's all right. That suits me just fine. Just what they have in mind when they say an old-fashioned Christmas. You never can pin them down to telling. Lots of snow, they mutter, and lots of food. Yet, if you work it right, you can get plenty of snow and plenty of food today. Snow, at any rate. Then there seems to be some idea of the old-fashioned Christmas being of necessity in the country. It doesn't make any difference whether you were raised on a farm or whether your idea of rural Christmases were gleaned from pictures in old copies of Harper's for Young People. You must give folks to understand that such were the surroundings by which you spent your childhood holidays. And that, me, those days we will never see again. Well, supposing you got your wish sometime, supposing, let us say, your wife's folks, who live up in East Russet, Vermont, write and ask you to come up and bring the children for a good old-fashioned Christmas while we are all still together. They add that cheerily with their flair for putting everybody in a good humor. Oh, hooray, hooray. Off to the country for Christmas. Pack up all the warm Pack up all the warm Pack up all the warm clothes in the house, for you will need them up there where the air is clean and cold. Snowshoes? Yeah, put them in, or better yet, Daddy will carry them. What fun. Take along some sleigh bells to jangle in case there aren't enough on the pung. There must be jangling sleigh bells. And whiskey for frostbite. Or is it snake bite that whiskey is for? Anyway, put it in. We're off. Goodbye, all. Goodbye. Jangle, 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 jangle. In order to get to East Russet, you take the Vermont Central as far as Twitchell's Falls, and you change there for Torpid River Junction, where a spur line takes you right into Gormley. Now, I want to say here, ladies and gentlemen, that I do believe, hi, Charbonneau, I do believe that since the Vermont Central went through Bellows Falls and went to White River Junction, and then there used to be a spur line to Woodstock, that is probably, it may not be Woodstock, it might have been the line up Newport Way, but anyway, I bet Twitchell's Falls is Bellows Falls, and I bet that Torpid River Junction is White River Junction. Anyway, in order to get to East Russet, you take the Vermont Central as far as Twitchell's Falls, and you change there for Torpid River Junction, where a spur line takes you right into Gormley. At Gormley, you're met by a buckboard, which takes you back to Torpid River Junction again. By this time, a train or something has come in, which will wait for the local from Beezus. While waiting for this, you have time to send your little boy to school so that he can finish 3rd grade. At East Russet, Grandpa meets you with the sleigh. The bags are piled in, and Mother sits in front with Lester in her lap. Well, Daddy takes Junior and Gaga in back with him and the luggage. Oh, giddy up, Esther girl. Esther girl, giddy ups, and 2 suitcases immediately fall out. Hi ho, hi ho. Out we get and pick them up, brushing the snow off and filling our cuffs with it as we do so. After all, there is nothing like snow for getting up one's cuffs. Good, clean snow never hurt anyone, which is lucky because after you've gone a mile or so, you discover that Gaga is missing. Never mind. She is a self-reliant little girl, and she will doubtless find the way to the farm by herself. Probably she'll be there waiting for you when you arrive. The farm is situated on a hill about 1,100 miles from the center of town, just before you get to Canada. If there is a breeze in winter, they get it. This so reminds me of going to the aunts in Wethersfield for Christmas when we were children. We lived in Milford, New Hampshire, and would go over to Wethersfield to the aunts who lived in the middle of nowhere on a dirt road. Soon after that, we moved there. But during the period of my very small childhood, when I was Gaga-sized, getting over there, it felt like you're going to the end of the world, and there was nothing to do once you got there. Now, I'm just going to check and see who's there. Carol Burning's here. Martha Rowley is here. Yes, Martha. And Martha, here we go. Thank you so much. And okay, all the comments I can see are Martha and Carol, so I'm glad everyone's here. I can see a bunch of other people are watching. I'm not sure if they're able to comment or not. I never can keep track of any of it. Anyway, back to the reading at hand, ladies and gentlemen, back to the reading at hand. The farm is situated on a hill about 1,100 miles from the center of town, just before you get into Canada. If there is a breeze in winter, they get it. But What do they care for breezes, so long as they have the little Colonel oil heater in the front room to make everything cozy and warm within a radius of 4 inches, and the big open fireplace with the draft coming down it? Oh, that is fun for everybody. You are just driving up to the farmhouse in the sleigh with the entire right leg frozen where the lap robe has slipped out. Grandma is waiting for you at the door, and you bustle in, all glowing with good cheer. Merry Christmas, Grandma. Lester's cross, and Junior is asleep and has to be dragged by the hand upstairs, bumping against each step all the way. It is so late that you decide that you all might as well just go to bed, especially as you learn that breakfast is at 4:30. It usually is at 4, but Christmas being a holiday, everyone sleeps late. As you reach the top of the stairs, you get into a current of cold air, which has something of the quality of the temperature of a nice, well-regulated crypt. This is the bedroom zone, and in it, the thermometer never tops the 0 mark from October 15th until the middle of May. Those rooms in which no one sleeps are used to store perishable vegetables in, which is true. That was done at the aunts. The rooms in which no one sleeps are used to store perishable vegetables in, and someone has to keep thumbing the tomatoes and pears every so often to prevent their getting so hard that they crack. The way to get undressed for bed in one of Grandpa's bedrooms is as follows. Starting from the foot of the stairs where it's warm, run up 2 at a time to keep the circulation going as long as possible. Opening the bedroom door with one hand, tear down the curtains from the windows with the other, pick up the rugs from the floor, and snatch the spread from the top of the bureau. Pile all of these on the bed. Cover with the closet door, which you have wrenched from its hinges, and leap quickly underneath. It sometimes helps to put on a pair of rubbers over your shoes. And even when you're in bed, you have no guarantee of actually going to sleep. Grandpa's mattresses seem to contain the overflow from the silo. Corn husks, baked potato skins, and long stringy affairs which feel like pipe cleaners. On a cold night, snuggling down into these is about like snuggling down into a bed of damp pine cones out in the forest. And then there are things abroad in the house. Shortly after you get into bed, the stairs start snapping. If you've ever stayed in an old house, exactly. Shortly after you get into bed, the stairs start snapping. Next, something runs along the roof over your head. You say to yourself, "Don't be silly. It's only Santa Claus." Then it runs along in the wall behind the head of the bed. Santa Claus would not be doing that. Down the long hall which leads into the L of the house, you can hear the wind sighing softly with an occasional reassuring bang of a door. The unmistakable sound of someone dying in great pain rises from just below the windowsill. It's sort of a low moan with just a touch of strangulation in it. Perhaps Santa has fallen off the roof. Perhaps that story you once heard about Grandpa's house having been a hangout for revolutionary smugglers is true, and one of the smugglers has come back for his umbrella. The only place at a time like this is down under the bedclothes. But the children become frightened. and demand to be taken home. And Grandpa has to be called to explain that it's only Bluebell out in the barn. Bluebell has asthma, and on a cold night, they have to be very patient with her. Christmas morning dawns cloudy and cold with the threat of plenty more snow. And after all, what would Christmas be without snow? You lie in bed for an hour and a quarter trying to figure out how you can get up without losing the covers from around you. A glance at the water pitcher shows that it is time for them to put the red ball up for skating. You think of the nice warm bathroom at home and decide that you can wait to get back there before shaving. This breaking of the ice in the pitcher seems to be a feature of the early lives of all great men when they look back on with tremendous satisfaction. When I was a boy, I used to have to break the ice in the pitcher every morning before I could wash, they would say. And they say it with as much pride as one might say, when I was a boy, I stood at the head of the class. Just what virtue there is in having to break ice in a pitcher in a bedroom is not evident, unless it lies in their taking the bother to break the ice and to wash at all. Anytime I have to break ice in a pitcher as a preliminary to washing, I just go unwashed, that's all. And Benjamin Franklin and U.S. Grant and Rutherford B. Hayes can laugh as much as they like. I am nobody's fool about a thing like that. Getting the children dressed is a lot of fun when you have to keep pumping their limbs up and down to keep them from freezing out stiff. The children love it and are just as bright and merry as little pixies when it is time to go downstairs and say good morning to Grandpa and Grandma. The entire family enters the dining room purple and chattering and exceedingly cross. After breakfast, everyone begins getting dinner. The kitchen, being the only warm place in the house, may have something to do with it. But before long, there's so many potato peelings and turkey feathers and squash seeds and floating bits of pie crust in the kitchen that the women folks send you and the children off into the front part of the house to amuse yourselves and get out of the way. Then what a jolly, jolly time you and the kiddies and Grandpa have together. You can either slide on the horsehair sofa or play the wayside chapel on the piano. The piano has scroll work on either side of the music rack with yellow silk showing through. Or you can look out the window and see 10 miles of dark gray snow. Perhaps you may even go out to the barn and look at the horses and cows. But really, as you walk down between the stalls, when you've seen one horse or one cow, you've pretty much seen them all. And besides, the cold in the barn has an added flavor of damp harness leather and musty carriage upholstery, which eats into your very marrow. Of course, there are the presents to be distributed, but that takes on much the same aspect as the same ceremony in the new-fashioned Christmas. Except in the really old-fashioned Christmases, the presents weren't quite so tricky. Children got mostly mittens and shoes, with a sled thrown in sometimes for distraction. Where a boy today is bored by 3 o'clock in the afternoon with his electric grain elevator and miniature pond with real perch in it, the old-fashioned boy was lucky if he got a copy of Naval Battles of the War of 1812 and an orange. Now this feature is often brought up in praise of the old way of doing things. I'll tell you, says Uncle Gus, the children in my time never got such presents as you get today. And he seems proud of the fact, as if there was some virtue accruing to him for that. If the children of today can get electric grain elevators and tin automobiles for Christmas, why aren't they that much better off than their grandfathers who got only wristlets? Learning the value of money, which seems to be the only argument of the stand patters, does not hold very much water as a Christmas slogan. The value of money can be learned in just about 5 minutes when the time comes, but Christmas is not the appropriate season. But to return to the farm, where you and the kiddies and Grandpa are killing time, you can either bring in wood for the wood stove, or thaw out the pump, or read the books in the bookcase over the writing desk. Of the three, bringing in the wood will probably be the most fun, as you're likely to burn yourself thawing out the pump, and the list of reading matter on hand includes The Life and Deeds of General Grant, Our First Century, Andy's Trip to Portland, bound volumes of the Jersey Cattle Breeders Gazette, and Diseases of the Horse. Then there's some old copies of Round the Lamp for the years 1850 to 1854, and some colored plates showing plans for the approaching World's Fair in Chicago. Thus the time passes in one round of gaiety after another until you are summoned to dinner. Here, all cavilling must cease. The dinner lives up to the advertising. If an old-fashioned Christmas could consist entirely of dinner without the old-fashioned bedrooms and the old-fashioned pitcher and the old-fashioned entertainments, we professional pessimists would not have a turkey leg left to stand on. But, as has been pointed out, it is possible to get a good dinner without going up to East Russet, Vermont, or, if it isn't, then our civilization has been a failure. And the dinner only makes the aftermath all the worse. According to an old custom of the human race, everyone must overeat. Deliberately and with considerable gusto, you sit at the table and you say pleasantly, "Oh my, I won't be able to walk after this." "Just a little more of the dark meat, please, Grandpa, and a dab of stuffing." Oh dear, that's too much." You haven't the excuse of the drunkard who becomes oblivious to his excesses after several drinks. You know exactly what you are doing, and yet you make light of it and even laugh about it, as long as you can laugh without splitting out a seam. Then you sit and moan. If you were having a good new-fashioned Christmas, you could go out to the movies or take a walk or a ride, but to be really old-fashioned, you must stick close to the house, for in the old days there were no movies and there were no automobiles, and if you wanted to take a walk, you had to have the hired man go ahead of you with a snow shovel and make a tunnel. There are probably plenty of things to do in the country today, and just as many automobiles and electric lights as there are in the city. But you can't call Christmas with all these improvements an old-fashioned Christmas. That's just cheating. If you're going through with the thing right, you have got to retire to the sitting room after dinner and sit. Of course, you can go out and play in the snow if you want to, but you know as well as I do that this playing in the snow is all right when you are small, but a bit trying on anyone over the age of 30. Anyway, it always begins to snow along about 3 p.m. of an old-fashioned Christmas, with a cheery old leaden sky overhead and a jolly old gale sweeping around the corner of the house. No, you simply must sit indoors in front of a fire if you insist, but nevertheless with nothing to do. The children are sleepy and snarling. Grandpa is just sleepy. Someone tries to start the conversation, but everyone else is too gorged with food to be able to move the lower jaw sufficiently to articulate. It develops that the family is in possession of the loudest ticking clock in the world, and along about 4 o'clock, it begins to break its own record. A stenographic report of the proceedings would read as follows. Ho hum, I am sleepy. I shouldn't have eaten so much. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. It seems just like Sunday, doesn't it? Look at Grandpa, he's asleep. Here, Junior, don't plague Grandpa. Let him sleep. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Junior, let Grandpa alone. Do you want Mama to take you upstairs? Ho hum. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Louder and louder the clock ticks until something snaps in your brain and you give a sudden leap into the air with a scream, finally descending to strangle each of the family in turn and Grandpa as he sleeps. Then, as you feel your end is near, all the warm things you have ever known come back to you in a flash. You remember the hot Sunday subway to Coney Island. You remember your trip to Mexico. You remember the bullfighters of Spain. You dash out into the snowdrifts and you plunge along until you sink, exhausted. Only the fact that this article ends here keeps you from freezing to death with an obituary the next day, which reads, died suddenly at East Russet, Vermont, of a good old-fashioned Christmas. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for Benchley Night tonight. Such a wonderful holiday story that, and we have more coming in the coming weeks. It'll be a joy to share those with you as well. Oh, let's see who else. There's Nat Hunter is here, my very, very tall cousin. Excellent, excellent, excellent. And now we have a few people to thank. We have a few people to thank, and the unidentified unglet in the can is ready. Now this, ladies and gentlemen, are people who are paid subscribers to my Substack, my email list. And all funds raised go to various quixotic charitable projects, whether it's involved in purchasing a new popcorn machine for the theater, supporting ProPublica against the encroaching fascism, whatever. Every penny that we take in goes right out again. And we have to thank Ms. Carol Burning, Kate Fry, Rhea Bruns, Ann Cousins, Lizzie Grosso, Nancy Bass, Susan McCula, Nancy Flanagan, Christina Stockman, Busy Graham, the great Catherine Fisher, Nancy Radzik, Deborah Lovett, Susan McNeil, Marlon Gibson, Terry Widener, great illustrator, MJ Brush, Jean Fry, Helen Sixek, Sonia Jackson, Ms. Martha Rowley of Saxons River, Vermont, who also dropped off a liberal do-gooder snowplower check today. Thank you, Martha. James Gilbraith, excellent artist down in Texas. Mr. Jeb Hart, Cindy Baker, the birthday boy himself, Mr. John T. Wilhelm. And out in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, gorging himself on Royal Riviera pears, the one, the only, my very, 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 very tall cousin, Mr. Nat Hunter, his wonderful wife Elise, and their wee little dog, Ginger. We'll see you next week, everybody. You take good care. Bye-bye.